What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Wednesday Album Club on the Heavy Metallurgy channel. Hope you're all doing great. We've assembled another, well, I shouldn't say crew of metallurgists. There's two of them that are the same old suspects, but we have an honorary metallurgist tonight, Jurgen from Jurgen, 6 Beers, 9 Wives. Welcome. Thank you for joining us at short notice like that.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Our buddy Kellen had some work-related things to deal with, and we could have went at it as a power trio, but I figured we might as well get the man from the land over here that can probably wax a little more poetic about this band than the three of us noobs regarding this band could anyway. But Jim, how are you doing?
Doing very well, man. Ready to talk about some German thrash.
And everybody go check out his record label, Eihwaz Recordings, link in the description. Also, Jurgen, 6 Beers, 9 Wives, link in the description. TJ, how are you?
I'm fine. Just making sure the raccoons don't drop on my head out of the attic here. But otherwise, I'm good.
It's returning to nature over there where you're at.
It's
a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Well, before we get super started, I'll once again ply thy wares. We've got t-shirts, new shirt design by Mark Riddick. I'm sure you're sick of hearing me talk about it, but come buy them. Link in the description. There's hoodies. Not that this is a perfect time of year for hoodies, but it's coming quick and fast. Pestilence streams eternal. White t-shirts. There's some white t-shirts there, long sleeves, all that good stuff. TJ's got his. Jim, yours is going to be coming with a record here soon. Jurgen, you're going to be getting one with a record as well shortly. So I'm just waiting for the records to arrive, but we'll get to that another time. Before we get started on this, we started last week showing off one thing we've been listening to leading up to what we do here. For those of you that are new, which there's probably not a lot of people in here that are new, but one person each week picks an album, and we all listen to it for the week, and then we go through a list of like an outline of questions and dissect the album a little bit. But we figured before we do that, we could put where each of our heads have been all week by showing off a release we've been listening to. So Jim, we'll start with you.
All right. I've been doing a lot of streaming this week, doing that. I always forget the name. I always forget the name of those guys. Freaking Sacred Outcry. You put on my radar, Marty, and Triumpher.
Yep.
So yeah, I do think I'm gonna pick up that Sacred Outcry, man. But yeah, but stuff I've been spinning like actual record play and was Cephalix, Theonatology or something like that. I mean, probably
Roll Killer record. I got that. It's killer.
Yeah, just great riffs, man. Simple, crusty, old school death metal, stuff. But it's the riffs are very meaty, and fun to listen to whilst drinking a beer alone in a pool, which is what I was doing when I was listening to it.
Floating like a turd in a bucket.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. It was a brown alert, and I was the only one.
All right. Good one. Jurgen, what have you been listening to?
I've been listening to a compilation of the Violence demos. So nice. I love the Eternal Nightmare album. This one just came out on Vic Records. I got it in on Monday, and I've been listening to it for the week. It's
awesome.
Got 2 demos from 1988 and the old demo from 86. So nice one to have.
Awesome. Yeah, good one.
Heck yeah.
TJ.
I don't own this yet. I'll see if I can get that picture to show up. Probably won't, but is it gonna work now? No. My technology is awesome.
It's okay, Grandpa. It's okay, Grandpa.
So it's a band called Death White. It's the album called Grave Image. They're kind of, I don't know, they have their moments of more newer catatonia with heavier riffs. It's a really cool record. It's kind of right up my alley with stuff like that. I listened to that tail end of last week, and then I've been on a real kick with, like, put something on Spotify and then it'll take you down the rabbit hole of singles from other bands. And I've just really been on a kick of doing that a lot and really enjoying just like swiping through songs and then adding songs to my playlist and stuff. So I've got a lot of that going on too. But I listen to this, trying to get into some of my album stuff and on there, and it's a really cool record.
Okay. Well, funny, Jim should mention Sacred Outcry because they're my pick for the week. We're listening to this latest album, Towers of Gold. They're a Greek band. Their debut album is also really, really good. There's a little bit of a time gap between these two. Not a huge one. This one is called, I can't remember, Damned for All Times. And this one here, Towers of Gold, came out this year. And the thing that makes it even more special is it's got Daniel Hyman on vocals, who was the singer for Lost Horizon. He was also on one album by, is it the German band Crystal Eyes? Are they German, Jurgen? No, I don't know. They've got a million records. He sang on one of their records. He's on a bunch of other stuff, but obviously he's most well known for his stint in Lost Horizon, those 2 albums. This album is probably going to be my album of the year. This thing is amazing. It is such well done and non show offy power metal, but the riffs are really good. The guitar playing super tight, great. There's a good chunk in the middle of this album that's very much built on melancholy. It's just in the way Daniel constructs the vocal lines and layers stuff in the background. This album is incredible. I know Kellen and I are going to be doing a dive on this record probably on his channel at some point, but check out Sacred Outcry, Towers of Gold. I got this off their Bandcamp page. It's on No Remorse Records. Greek band, mostly Greek. Good stuff. Definitely check it out. But yeah, that's it. Let's jump into the Exumer here. I just run through the history real quick, and this is really brief. The Wikipedia breakdown. Exumer is a German thrash metal band formed in Wiesbaden in 1985 by singer, bassist Mem von Steen and guitarist Ray Mensch. The band broke up in 91 after 2 demos and 2 albums. Exumer appeared for a one-off show at Wacken Open Air in 2001 and were reactivated by von Steen and Mensch in 2008. They have released 5 full-length albums, 3 demos, 2 compilations, 1 split with Sun Descends, and 1 box set. And actually, Sun Descends, that's a funny little aside. Mem von Steen moved to the U.S. for a while, New York City, and this is their demo, Tides in the Affairs of Men. The interesting thing about this is that it's got Mem von Steen on vocals and S. Craig Zoller on drums. Our buddy Zoller played drums on this, so just for 3 songs, and then he was no longer in the band. But yep, I think they went on to put out a record. I'm not entirely sure because I didn't follow them after Craig wasn't in, but then a year after this was put out, Exumer reformed, so I'm sure Sun Descends was by the wayside at that point. But awesome. I mean, let's start with first impression. Jurgen, since you're new, well, have you go first. Your first impression of this record. And if you want to give a little beforehand stuff, you could do that as well. I know you've got visual aids.
This is the album we are talking about. I guess a lot of people have seen the cover. This is the original pressing on Disaster Records. I bought that one in 1988. Before that, the first demo they released was called A Mortal in Black. It had 3 songs on it. This is just a reissue on High Roller. And the second demo was not an official demo. This is basically a pre-production demo for the Possessed by Fire album. So they recorded that one in a little studio in their hometown. And this was not official. It was only sent out to record labels and, to some friends. So that one also was re-released on High Roller Records.
Right on.
So first impressions, yeah.
Same thing.
I was familiar with that album. I bought that when it came out in 1987, but I never heard the Possessed by Fire. So this one reminded me instantly a lot of Exodus bonded by blood. We're going to talk about that later. First impression, primitive sounding thrash metal, but it's not that primitive. Like I said, we're going to talk about that later. Very raw, typical German style. I'm gonna talk about the drumming on this album. Yeah, typical German thrash metal. But over the years, it's been 35 years now. It had the time to grow on me. So these are my first impressions.
All right, TJ.
Yeah, I'd seen this record around for years and always just passed by it. And I really can't explain why necessarily. Maybe kind of the goofy mascot on the cover. I don't know. Back in the day, seeing it in the store and kind of thinking like, well, that's not as cool as what I'm currently listening to ever could be, because that's just how I was, just like turn my nose up at everything because it wasn't what I was into, or at least I didn't know what it was, so it couldn't be cool, But my first, I put this on, it's like, yeah, this is, I mean, it's classic for the era. It's absolutely the German, the German of it is just so all over it. I think they're influenced by everything that was going on around them at the time, and it's pretty, some of the riffs in this are just like, hey, we're gonna just borrow like the first 2 seconds of that bar a little bit and make it our own thing. It's cool. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry I missed this back in the day. Typically I have a harder time going back on old things that I missed when I was a kid, because I just can't connect with it in the same way. But this one, it's hit me a lot different, and it's cool.
Since you picked it, Jim, I'll put you last. My first impression was funny. Jurgen and TJ both said it sounds like German thrash. It doesn't sound like German thrash to me. That was my first impression. Was it sounds more like Sacrifice or Blood Feast. It sounds like it could have fit in the realm of North American thrash. And Jurgen even said Exodus. I mean, I know that each hemisphere influenced each other, but I hear Sacrifice early, like Torment and Fire Sacrifice. I hear Blood Feast. Not necessarily. I didn't even think of Exodus. Never crossed my mind. But once I got over the fact that it didn't sound like Death Row or Creator or Destruction or the German thrash bands of the time that I'm familiar with, and there's a bunch I've missed. I'm not going to sit here like I'm an authority on it because I'm not. It sounded very North American to me, and above and beyond that, it really appealed to my nostalgia for the time. It is one of those albums I missed, and real simplistic riffing, but effective. There's a good ferociousness to it, and Mem's vocals they're exceptional vocals, kind of the yelled screaming style. I dig it. Again, it's in my wheelhouse, and if I would have picked this up back when I was a teenager, it would have definitely been in the classic realm for sure. Jim.
Yeah, definitely a latecomer to Exumer. I was watching Chromium's channel, and he, just kind of had a quick little snippet of Possessed by Fire, the title track, in one of his videos, and showed the cover, and I was like, "What is that?" Like, I loved it, you know what I mean? And I went and checked it out and listened to it a bunch online, and they just like pulled the trigger and bought it. So yeah. I agree with you, Marty. It's Mim's vocals all the way, man. They're just completely off the chain, just out there. This guy just doesn't give a damn, and I love that, and that's what I want to hear in my thrash, is someone just tearing his throat out, like just kind of screaming and yelling and but at the same time, I can understand what he's saying the whole time. Like his enunciation is super clear. So he's got this really, Tim said it in the chat, and I think he's right. And unhinged is the word, vocal style. But yet I can sing along with him, fallen saint, I mean, you know what he's saying every time, you know what I mean? So that really like appealed to me right away. It's that kind of thrash vocal that I really love. Guitar sounds great. that kind of like, German sort of high sound, that we hear in Destruction stuff, and maybe early Sodom, and to your point, Marty, and this kind of, I picked it up on it later, not so much on my initial ownership of this record, but there is some Bay Area stuff going on here. And so some harkens back to that, though. I think they kind of took some of these riffs from albums that I don't enjoy or get as excited about, and put them in places that I think have more power. So, but yeah, definitely. I first impression was it was crushing, and I just had to have it, and so yeah, I'm interested to get further in the discussion, but yeah, all the way around, it caught me, right away.
It's funny you mentioned hearing some Bay Area style riffs. I think it's the second song, Destructive Solution. There is almost note for note, Slayer's Fight Till Death. There's the riff off that. It's and I'm like,
sure.
Heard that riff. I'm like, okay, I went through Show No Mercy until I found I'm like, it's the lead off riff in Fight Till Death. And then you go back and listen to the Exumer song. It's like they tried to rework that song. It's like it sounds like it could have been on Show No Mercy. It's funny.
Was it Rain of Sadness? It's got a metallic, like half of a Metallica riff in it at one point.
Yeah, it sounds like Seek and Destroy and Rain of Sadness.
Yeah. There's definitely, like I said, they're definitely pulling their influences in really hard and showing them off here for sure. But we can dive into that a little bit. But.
Yeah, go ahead, Jurgen.
Mem von Stein is actually not a German guy. He's from Turkey.
Oh,
did you know that?
Did not know that.
Yeah,
I know he spent some time in New York City.
Yeah, he still lives there. He's
really?
A social worker. He works with drug addicts and ex-drug addicts. Yeah,
awesome. All right, Jim, what was your secondary question for us?
So my question, it's pretty on the nose. It's not too thought provoking or anything, but I'm definitely curious, because Exumer completely flew under the radar for me, and I suspect, and judging by talking to you tonight, Marty and TJ, I'm not alone. And even though I grew up during the thrash era and was deep into it, why do you guys think maybe they were caused to be more overlooked in the mid 80s in favor of their countrymen like Creator and Destruction and Sodom, at least here in the US? I know, Jurgen, you were well aware of them right at that time. That they were in your homeland. You bought that album, right around when it came out. You bought their second one right when it came out. So, but I wonder, maybe in terms of the rest of the world, like why are we just now? Why are these guys coming up on my radar when I have like tons and tons of thrash? Grew up in that era. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I think, first of all, it has to do with the Disaster label. It was a very shady label. They didn't have any distribution. And to be honest, Exumer wasn't very big in Germany as well. So their demo tapes were not very widespread here in Germany. They were from the same area as Tankard. And Tankard was the big band, and Exumer always was looked at their little brothers.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
TJ, you want to follow that up?
Yeah, I mean that would have been my first guess anyway. Was just probably, not being, not on a label that's not prolific that much. I don't know that I'm even familiar. I don't know who else. I'd have to look at the history of the label to see if I'm familiar with any other bands that might have been on there at the time. But it's typically with these bands that pop up, these little gems, their labels sucked. They weren't very prolific. They didn't get out of their own region very much. I mean that's usually kind of how.
Well, look at Tankard. Tankard didn't really either. They've never been to the U.S. as far as I know. I could be wrong there, but
I saw Tankard in Baltimore. Remember,
they came to Baltimore. Right on. We'll see. That's what. Well, I mean, how late in their career is that, though?
Yeah. Well, again, you're right about that too, though. It's like why they stayed home, but I don't know, maybe because they're the party band and everybody just gravitated to that more. I don't know. I mean, what can you say about stuff like this? I think, because the record is obviously on par with anything Creator was doing at the time, and right up there with
they're not as good as Creator. I'm sorry.
No, but it's
not.
No, I didn't say it was as good, but it's on par with that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that's my point. It's like, no, they needed some polish, to be sure. I mean, we'll get into it in a little bit, but I mean, some of the the composition of these songs and arrangements and stuff, it was a little bit whatever, but still, I think the potential was there, and it's definitely cool record. So I don't know. I mean, I think with Jurgen's point, I definitely think they were there's probably a lot of mismanagement there, combined with just making poor choices about pushing it, and maybe they weren't maybe they just weren't as interested in pushing themselves as far. What was it, 2 releases before they disbanded and then reformed however many years later. So it might have been just the personnel too. So
yeah, for me, it was the only thing in Northern Michigan that we had was a little teeny store called New Moon Records, and then Camelot Music. And if it didn't have it in Camelot Music, I didn't know about it. I just didn't. I wasn't connected to the zine scene, and that came later. But it was on Disaster Records. If it would have shown up on the racks, I would have looked at it. I might not have bought it because the cover isn't great. But then again, I mean, that doesn't mean crap, really. I mean, I've bought a lot of classic records that have really shitty covers and I ended up loving them. So for me, that was it. And then finally, by the time I did see Exumer on the rack, it was at New Moon Records. It was on vinyl. Someone brought it in. I was at the end of what money I had. I'm looking at the cover. I'm like, God, it's a dumb cover. I don't like the dude. And it was Rising from the Sea, I think, their second one. And I let it sit there. And by the time I went back, I'm like, I'll check that record out. It was gone. So that's always how it went. So that's how they evaded me. And another thing, they never turned up on compilations that I bought. I mean, did I go crazy with compilations? I didn't, but all the classic thrash compilations of the time over here in the US anyway, they never had Exumer songs on. And again, it all boils down to a shitty label. And about the time things start breaking, they broke up. So they couldn't right the ship and get on a different label or whatever. I'm speculating here, but it just didn't get under my radar because it wasn't on the shelf here. And I understand why. I mean, I never even heard of Disaster Records. I remember Jurgen showing on his channel. It might've been an Angel Dust record or something. Talked about, I remember you telling the story about how they were a shyster label. So, yeah. Anybody have anything more to add about that before we go to the next? No. Okay. Let's discuss the musicality and composition of Possessed by Fire. Jurgen, we'll start with you.
Yeah, like I said, at first listen, it sounds really, really primitive, somewhat typical German style thrash metal. But if you listen closely, these guys really, really could play, especially for that time. And if you compare it with the early, very early Death Row or very early Tankard, I think these were the better musicians. And I wanted to talk about the drumming. The drumming on that one is very, very special in my opinion. This guy is able to play ahead of the beat and behind the beat at the same time. If you know what I mean, it's like...
Yeah, they hadn't discovered the really click track.
Yeah, I think they didn't have click track.
No,
but that's what you can hear in all of the German thrash metal. The first couple of Destruction albums with Ollie on drums, he's a shitty drummer. The first records Ventor played on, the first Creator records, the drumming is shitty.
Well, he was a kid. They're kids.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
We didn't have any teachers who they were just listening to Dave Lombardo or Gene Hoglan, something like that, and tried to emulate that. And it sounded a little bit off. Yeah.
Yep.
The vocals on that one, I don't know. At first, I thought the vocals were generic, but they grew on me. I liked their second singer, Paul Arakari, on their second album a little bit better. But Mem von Stein, he really grew on me over the years. Yeah. That's it for Musicality.
All right. Jim.
And they had a couple of very, very strange musical parts mixed in there, especially on the song Destructive Solution. There's some kind of a mellow part, which was unusual for a German thrash band. And they had some polka stuff on Syrian's Dark Star or Reign of Sadness.
I think it was Reign of Sadness because I wrote down something about that as well. Yeah. All right, Jim.
Yeah, composition musicality. I agree with Jurgen. I think the drums are special. There is I'm trying to find, like, there's one song where he's just doing some really cool stuff on the cymbals, and I think it really added to. Yeah, it's on Sorrows of the Judgment. Like I love the 80s thrash toms when they had like a little bit of reverb on them. You know, it's like, you know, he hears that and it kind of puts him up high in the mix. And on that song, he also does some cool cymbal work. There's like a post-chorus riff, and like what he's doing on the cymbals like makes the riff sound way, way cooler, more interesting than it is. And I love that. You know, it's something that I think, you know, probably doesn't get talked about enough, is like how just like the right kind of cymbal attack can like make a riff just sound so much more heavier, you know, and so much more memorable. And it's actually one of my favorite parts of the song. And so, yeah, I think the guy is really great. You know, there's a lot of parts on this album where they'll do these like, you know, down picked riff or kind of slow alternate picked riffs, but he's playing like a fast snare over it. And it makes the riffs sound way more crushing than they would be without it. Like he's choosing to play faster rather than slower. And I think that, like, in general, Exumer shines more when they're playing faster. You know, the down tempo stuff is cool. Yeah. But I definitely think the faster stuff is where, you know, their attack is really, like, you know, filled out and really pulls you in. So, you know, good solos, you know, the guy's not Yngwie or anything, but they're clean and they're phrased well. You know, and I really kind of admire the vocalist, you know, Mem's ability to play bass while screaming like that. I think it's really, really cool. I mean, I bet watching them live was a trip, and I should try to look up some videos of what that could have been like. Or is like now, because I know they're playing again. But
Mem's just singing now. He's not playing bass anymore.
Oh, he isn't? Okay, yeah. Okay. But yeah, definitely really, really cool. And I you know, I want to add something too. Because I asked the question, I didn't comment on it, but about why, you know, we didn't hear maybe about them so much in the US. So besides the label stuff, you know, or maybe as a cause of it, you know, my thrash stuff came a lot from reading Thrash Metal Magazine. I was a subscriber, and I never once heard a mention of them from that. And I do think that you know, some of the cheesiness of the cover may have been a turnoff for some people as well. It might have hurt them. Like, I love it now. I wouldn't trade it for it. I think it's great. But, you know, North of the Rockies in the comments pointed this out. I thought it was really cool, and I just wanted to show it again. That's the German flag, dude. You know, the black and the red and the yellow. I'm sure
I never even noticed it. No.
I never would have noticed. I think that's so cool, man. Now I love this cover even more, man. Like, bring it on. Like, this guy would kick the Quiet Riot guy's ass.
Nothing says metal like a hockey mask gimp guy.
That's right. That's right. Okay. All right. I'm done with musicality.
No shit.
All right, TJ.
Yeah, so I think for this being the first release, I think the songs are really strong. You know, they're trying really hard, and to be really inventive and be different. But I think it falls flat in some because they do these. They have like there's spots in a lot of these songs where like at the end of the opening track, they end the song. They like come in the last 40 seconds or whatever it is, or about the 3-minute mark, and they come in with this really cool crunch thing, and then they just play that for like 4 bars and end the song. It's like, and he sings, it's like, God, that would have been a great bridge in the middle of the song to really push the song over the top. But instead they saved it to the very end and just kind of threw it away. And they do that all over the place on here. And so their arranging skills could have used a little bit of polishing. But I mean, again, they were young. This was a long time ago, and they were just trying to do what they do. I think, and then with Jim, I really love the soloing in this. There's by no means is he some, a virtuoso guitar maestro or by any stretch, but to me, it was like, imagine if like Milla and Kerry King had taken a couple lessons and, kind of sorted their shit out a little bit early on. And it really has that kind of, that feel, that just that feel to it, but it's all kind of, he's in there and he's getting nuts, he's getting aggressive, he's getting off the hinge a little bit with it, but then it's all still in the box and everything sounds really cool. So I definitely thought that was cool. The vocals and stuff, I mean, it's all, there are moments when he gets a little bit too weird, but overall I think it's really cool. And I think that's something that would have put this over the top for me back when I was a kid if I had gotten it then. He's so much more extreme than some of the other thrash bands that like why Death Angel didn't appeal to me. I didn't really care for the singing all that much, versus like Blood Feast or what Zetro was doing or whatever. I just like the more extreme styles more. But I think it's definitely cool, and the nastiness of what they're doing really sells these songs really well. They're just kind of aggressive and odd in places, and it really helps it. I think their arranging skills could have used some work. I think the songs could have been a lot better if they had like moved some of these other parts into the middle and worked them out into better choruses or bridge parts. And and I just lost my train of thought, but yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's really well done for being a first release for a band like this. And there are things, I mean, you're here to me, it's like, I don't get any of that, I found the Metallica thing. Somebody mentioned something like maybe Metallica ripped them off, but I don't know. The Metallica is pretty good at ripping people off back in the day. So I don't know, but, it just, I'm hearing creator riffs on here. I'm hearing destruction riffs on here, and obviously that was all happening around him at the exact same time, so it is what it is, but it's still, to me, I definitely, the German stuff, the German influence on this to me. I mean, this sounds like German thrash metal to me. The Bay Area stuff is obviously in there because all those guys were listening to that stuff and wishing that they were, Exodus or Testament or whatever, but yeah.
You mentioned Destruction, and I guess now that I think about it, if they are influenced by Infernal Overkill, because Infernal Overkill is quite a bit different than Eternal Devastation. Eternal Devastation started to be more note-based, kind of noodly, technical style riffs, and this Exumer record, there's a lot of that tight palm muted crunching, which I really like. Ray's guitar work is really, he's a really good guitar player, and that
there's plenty of moments on here where that quacking guitar tone that some of those early Destruction, like on Eternal Devastation, they were just playing through, cranked Marshalls. There was like, maybe they had an overdrive pedal running through, but they get into the crunching riffs and it's just like quack, 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 you can just totally hear it, but it's still so cool because the songs are so good. But, in this, it's like you're hearing it in places where it's almost like it's intentional. Like they're just totally trying to emulate that feel of that, and they're, you know, really driving the pick into the string into the pickup, and to get the guitar to make that quack 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 sound when they're crunching at it. And it only happens in a few spots, but I picked up on it right away because, you know, you know, Destruction was such a huge part of my, you know, repertoire as a fan. But, you know, yeah, I mean.
Well, for me, musicality, composition, I think there's nothing on here that bothers me, and it really plays to the nostalgia for me. And like I said, if I would have picked this up back in the day, it would have been part of my steady diet. And listening to it now in hindsight, I agree with TJ that there are some structuring immaturities. I think a couple of the songs could have been restructured a little bit better. You know, they could have expanded on some ideas, and there's the reworking of Fight Till Death, the riff. There's a Seek and Destroy on there. I mean, obviously they were a product of their influences. We all are. I mean, last album I wrote a song, 90% of it was a Carcass song, and I didn't know it until it was all said and done. Wasn't note for note, but it still sounded like Carcass. And subconsciously it happens, and you play something like you think it sounds cool. Well, it probably is because you subconsciously ripped it off. You're playing in the same key. You just kind of go there. It's just the way it goes. But I think the songwriting is fair. I think the riffs are good. I think what really sells this material for me is the fast stuff, like Jim mentioned. I like this band a lot more when they're fast, and they just have a savage sound to them when they're doing it. The way Mem's vocals interact with it, I think he's just a good savage singer. But again, you can understand everything he's saying. But they weren't reinventing the wheel. They weren't necessarily that original, but it's okay. You don't need to be. As long as the songs are good, the sound is good. They have a good charismatic singer. He definitely fit in it, all the while playing bass at the same time. Very cool. It works for me. Am I going to take this over the second Death Row record? No, probably not. But if I found it, I would definitely buy it. Let's talk about the production, which I will say was recorded at Music Lab Studios in Berlin, Germany, mastered at Leighton, Offenbach, Germany. Music Labs, wasn't that Harris John's studio?
Yeah. He produced this.
Oh, he did? Okay, I didn't see that info on the Metal Archives. It just said Music Labs, and I figured that was. What is your thoughts of the production, Jurgen?
Yeah, for that time, it was a pretty good production. Back in '86, we didn't have many producers who were familiar how to produce heavy metal or thrash metal. Some of the old German stuff sounds a little bit, it's like I said, it's just a Marshall placed a microphone in front of it and just played through the Marshall. That's what they were doing, but surprisingly good production on that one. It was one of Harris Jones' very first productions he did. He had a little bit of experience with Creator before that. And I think that played all in their cards. So for a debut album, it's got a really, really good and thick production. I think it's really, really balanced. It's not overproduced, but you can hear everything. You can pick out the bass guitar. You can pick out the two guitars. The vocals are up front, and you can hear the tom rolls on the drums. So everything is there for 1986. What?
He's fading. We lost him. He'll jump back on. Jim.
Oh, yeah. Is Jurgen back, or is he?
No, he's froze.
Okay. All right.
Caught in the matrix.
Yeah. So
caught in the mosh.
I'm going to just echo what Jurgen said. I think the production is super balanced. I absolutely love how I can hear everything, really well. The guitars and the drums, for this era, like it's the sound that I want to hear. Everything is really powerful. and it's just so dirty. This album, so raw. It's not a demo, but it just a couple steps lower in production, and it could be in a good way. Like I feel like there's just a lot of a very of an earnest approach to the sound that they chose in that studio, where they really wanted to sound like you're right in front of their stage, eyeball level with their 212 Celestians slamming in your face, and I like that. That's the kind of feel that I kind of want to get back to if I'm listening to a record like this, like where you couldn't even hear the mains, you're just hearing straight stage sound from the bass and guitars and stuff, and the actual snares and the bass drums without them being like engineered or messed with in any way. That's what this record sounds like to me, a very performance kind of a sound. My only criticism would be is and you guys hear me say this all the time, I do wish the bass was louder. And yes, I play bass, so that matters to me. But that's only. But it is there. You can hear it. You got to listen for it. Sometimes on some there are some moments, depending on, like, if they're playing like scales are higher up on the neck or just a higher key, it's easier to hear the bass then, just as you would suspect. But I would like overall for it to have like a little bit more of a push. But that's a minor criticism. It's not like it's buried. It isn't buried. Overall, it's a really balanced production, and whether or not they just got lucky or whether or not it was intentional, I think that the end result was something that I'm definitely always looking for in a classic thrash album, and it completely delivered. It's part of what won me over. What was that live approach of the production? So no complaints from me there.
Jurgen, we lost you mid thought? Did you get everything out you wanted to say about the production?
No, my laptop just fucked up right at the end of my of my rant.
Okay, right on. Okay, we'll go on.
I'm getting professional here. I set up my second laptop right when we were chatting.
Yep, perfect. All right, TJ, production.
Yeah, I think the production on this for the era, this is really solid compared to a lot of the things that were coming out for being a first release, an unknown band, from Germany. I'm really surprised at how good this sounds. And one thing, like Jurgen said, a lot of the guitar tone of the time, these bands, there was no saturation, there was no real gain outside of whatever the amp was doing. And I think that's indicative of a lot of the producers and engineers they worked with, where those guys like, oh, well, you want gain, well, then we just turn this all the way up. And they didn't really understand. It's like, well, we can't put all that distortion in front of that microphone because it's gonna cause clipping and phasing and all this. They didn't know how to do it. And I'm really surprised at how snarling and gritty this is, and it still came across really well put together, and you could pick the things out. Obviously the Harris Johns, his little bit of production, I think he had a good sense of what this was supposed to sound like for them, and brought it across. And compared to some of the other stuff at the time, it's pretty good. I think this is one of the production on this is really kind of one of the shining pieces of it, to me anyway. It's just how well it's produced. Is it perfect? No, but again, for 86 coming out like that, I think it's really good. The drums thump, the guitars have really good attack, the vocals are where they need to be. I don't know, there ain't a lot to really complain about for my money on it. Yeah.
Well, you look at what came out in 86. We're talking a lot about Destruction tonight. Eternal Devastation came out in 86, and that was recorded at Studio Hilpoltstein. And again, I love that record for the music. I love that searing tinfoil production on the good. Sound like it was recorded on tinfoil. And
yeah,
I've always liked Harris John's production style, and he just had a way. I think Noise Records used him a lot, and his productions always sounded really set. All the instruments sound set in together. The guitars aren't just a crappy half broken amp cranked. It actually sounds like there's some meat to it and some distortion. And Exumer benefited from that know-how. I mean, if this is only his first or second production, he had an idea. A little bit of working with Creator, I think he gave him some ideas what to do and what not to do. And I'm sure at the time he was listening to other things coming out in the era as well. And I mean, if you listen to Eternal Devastation, it sounds like crap. It sounds the way it's supposed to sound. And for it, I love it. But if I were to get a record like that today, I'd be like, wow. I mean, it's the equivalent of Ulver's Nathan's Madrigal. It's this really crisp out, like lo-fi, no-fi production type of thing. But I think the everybody said, I'm just going to reiterate essentially. I think Harris Johns did a good job. I like the guitar tone. Everything sits well in the mix and it works really good for me. It sounds like a good product of its time on the good side of it, not the bad side. Let's get into the least favorite songs. Jurgen.
Favorite song, Possessed by Fire, the title track, the opening song. Definitely. It's such I don't know, fist to the dome. I don't know how to say that. Perfect opening for a thrash metal album. It's just a punch in your face. Least favorite song, Fallen Saint, because I've heard it so fucking much, and it was already on the demo, and they still play it live, and it's their hit song. And I think it's not that I don't like it, but the primitive chorus gets on my nerves a little bit.
See, that was my problem with Tankard's Zombie Attack. I like that record, but every song is the name of the song 4 times. They got like Chemical Invasion. They turned into an okay band to an awesome band on that album. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm with you. The regurgitation of the name of the song 4 times. It's kind of it's visionless.
Yeah. And I've got one thing for the production that reminded me a little bit of Exodus. If on the Bonded by Blood album, if Gary Holt plays the riff on its own without a second guitar, it sounds a little bit thin. But when the second guitar comes in, it sounds really full. So yep. The 2 guitars accomplish each other, and it's the same on that Exumer record, I think.
Maybe they brought that, Bonded by Blood's a good reference point, actually. When you mention Exodus, I'm thinking Pleasures of the Flesh. I mean, I got that before I ended up getting Bonded by Blood, just because of the way it turned out. But Bonded by Blood, it could have a similar production sound, too. I mean, very similar style for both of those bands. I can see now I understand the Exodus comparison, now that I consider Bonded by Blood. That's a good call, actually.
Yeah.
Jim.
I'm gonna go ahead and say I disagree. I like Fallen Saint, but then again, I'm a lot newer to this band, so I can see what you guys are saying, and I kind of like that he repeats the name of the song on the chorus, because then I can yell along with it. Fallen Saint.
It's like Fallen Saint. Yeah, I know the
song. which I do in the truck. It's awesome. But I really like that one. I think Sorrows of the Judgment is good, even with that weird little jazz break or whatever is going on there. It's still a really cool song. Xeron Darkstar, that's one I was talking about earlier. Had the really cool badass riff, but he's playing fast over it. It makes it 10 times better, 10 times heavier. And I gotta say, I really like the closer too, man. Silent Death, like that song, it has everything I want a closing song to be. It's powerful, it's fast, it doesn't disappoint you at the end. It closes the way an album should. It's uncompromising riff salad. Yeah, every riff on it is really great. There's a riff about 1:30 in where they kind of do this descent, down the fretboard, and it just sounds super, super cool. And then from there, you're like, you think they're going to let up, and then boom, they go into this other riff that's like, just full on, headbanging. It's really cool. And of course, welcome to the Silent Death. I mean, everything about that song is thrash gold. So Yeah. You know, I think if you don't listen to anything else, man, you got to check out Silent Death, man. It's absolutely crushing. The one song that I don't super care for is "Reign of Sadness." The riff arrangements on that one I think are kind of awkward. You know, I don't know. It seems like, you know, to TJ's point earlier, like, you know, they had some trouble and I got a little hair sticking up like an alfalfa there. Yeah, like you know, that's the one I feel like, you know, maybe I was an early track of theirs or something, but it doesn't feel like it's put together super well. I don't hate it, but I'm always ready for it to go by, so I get to Journey to Oblivion, which I think is a much better song, and it completely makes me forget about it. So, but yeah, other than Reign of Sadness, I think this is a really solid, you know, arrangement of songs all the way through. To Jurgen's point, Possessed by Fire is a great introduction to the song, or to the band, and Silent Death is a perfect closer.
All right, TJ.
Favorites. I like the Mortal in Black. It's a little weird. The chorus is a little strange, but I like the song overall. It's pretty cool. Silent Death, really killer closer for the record. I didn't like Zyron, Dark Star, and Journey to Oblivion. You know,
Those are on my list.
Of course they are.
We listened to the different album or what?
No. So no, but that's you know, and then the rest of the record, I mean, you know, the opening track is really cool, and by and large there's a lot of really good stuff on here. You know, it was kind of just picking things apart a little bit. So, but yeah, that's about it.
For me, I don't dislike any song on this record. I think it's a really consistent record, and even the slower parts, I like the fact that they're trying to break up. It's not just, you know, palm muted fast thrash attack. They're trying to do little things here and there to break up and keep it from getting monotonous. And but having said that, I put down Destructive Solution. That for some reason the Slayer riff really bothered me. I'm like, why? You got to know that that's almost like one note away from being the Slayer riff. I mean, anybody, you just got to know it, and that bugged me. And then the two tracks, Reign of Sadness and Immortal in Black, both the songs are solid, but the slower mid pace feels awkward for the band. They just seem more comfortable with the fast attack. And having said I didn't like these as much, I'm just trying to pick something that bothered me a little bit. If I spent another week with it, I probably would have liked it, but I did like the fact they're trying to break up the songs, but some of those slower riffs kind of bugged me a little bit. I like mentioned jazz or something. Yeah, it's like just something weird about it was a little bit off. But the good, I mean, Possessed by Fire, the title track rips the album off perfectly. It's awesome. Great song, real aggressive. Fallen Saint, the repeated chorus is annoying, but the music itself is it's a very headbanger, aggressive headbanger of a song. Like it a lot. At Zyron Dark Star, again, they're saying the name of the song over and over, but awesome energy and riffing. Mem's more manic vocals work perfectly here, and they do. The faster they go, there's a little bit of a craziness to his screaming. It's cool. He keeps it in control, but I like it. Journey to Oblivion is really super simplistic, yet effective riffing. Tight palm muted crunches really stand out here. Ray, is that his name? Yeah, Ray's. I really like that. He's super clean on that palm muted crunch. But yeah, favorites, least favorites, and judgment. Final thoughts, Jurgen. We're gonna go with you.
I'm not at the end of my journey with that album, and like I said, it already started 35 years ago, so I'm not done with that album.
Cool.
If any of you are thrash metal fans and you don't know the album, there is a reissue on High Roller Records that comes with a nice inner sleeve, and it has the Mortal in Black 7-inch, the demo. So no excuse for you thrashers out there to get the album. Period.
Right on. And yes, Jurgen is sponsored by High Roller Records. We'll go into his living room and see they're his interior decorator as well. Yep. All right, Jim.
Well, obviously, I picked it, so I love this record. From the first time I heard it, it really scratches that thrash itch in a very effective way for me, and I honestly haven't stopped listening to it since I got it. So I might end up like Jurgen here, still spinning this one 35 years later. I don't know what it is about it, but something it just really works for me every time. And it just makes me happy. It's so crazy, it like Mim's vocals and just like and just like it's unrelenting. Like it just even though in Destructive Solution there's like an acoustic interlude, like it's very brief and somehow it doesn't feel like a breather. Like it still feels intense even during that. And so I this one's always going to be up there. I mean, we, like Marty said earlier, all at least at my caliber of musicianship, I certainly do, bite off all of my influences when I write riffs and stuff like that. And so, I'm willing to forgive some of that. I think it would be, dishonest if I didn't ding them a little bit, for it. So I gotta say it's like a A- for me for that reason. But I love this record. It just makes me smile, even the goofy cover. You know what I mean? Like I just want to. I'm like, yeah, look at that, dude! But it kicks ass. That's like what I want to say every time I look at it. It's like great. No, I agree with Jurgen. I think that if you're a fan of thrash metal from this era, you will do no wrong by picking this up. You will not regret it. This is good stuff.
TJ.
Record gets a B+. It's a really killer first release by somewhat obscure German thrash band. Definitely should be on people's radar if they're if they missed it back in the day or if they're trying to rediscover hidden gems. It's very cool. I regret missing out on this as a kid. It's very cool, and yeah, definitely. It's got its little blemishes here and there, but that's more me being critical as a middle-aged man.
Well, blemishes really are part of the whole young threat. It's part of it. It's part of the style. I get what you're saying, but it was part of it.
Absolutely right. It is. This is part. The nostalgia trip for this.
You can't listen to Endless Pain without hearing.
Oh yeah, and again, my nitpicks for this. It's like I listen to Endless Pain or Pleasure to Kill or any of these other, and it's like I just don't even hear any of it, even though I know it's all there, because I'm so endeared to those releases, as a kid. Now, like I say, as a middle-aged man, I'm just like, this is a really cool song, but it's like I gotta get the index finger out and be like, and and it's like. And I'm just, again, it's just nitpicking. It is part of the charm of what this is. You have to kind of, remove yourself a little bit and take the nostalgia trip with this record and be like, God, man, if I had been listening, I can just see myself in my old bedroom, at 15, 16, just being like, these guys are just awesome and everything else sucks. So because that's just the way things were. So yeah, definitely recommend it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a band I've always heard of. I've heard people talking about them, and they evaded me when I was younger for the reasons we've already discussed. And I don't know why I never pursued it. I mean, my buddy Craig was in Mem's other band and mentioned Exumer, and I was like, oh, I need to check them out someday, and I just never felt compelled to do so. And thankfully Jim picked it, and that's the fun about these album clubs. It's you're stuck in a position where you're listening to something outside of maybe what you want to. And do I regret missing it back in the day? Yeah, I probably would have a lot more nostalgia wrapped around this record, but I'm going to give it a B-. I think it's really solid. It's aggressive. It's of its time. The nostalgia, it was a lot of fun listening to it this week. And I know if I found it and bought it, I would enjoy it. I don't think they were super original. I understand the time what was going on. They were very, I think, influenced by North American bands and Canadian bands, which is, again, that's fine. Where bands like Creator and Destruction and were kind of doing their, and Sodom, all those guys were doing kind of their own thing. They all sounded different from each other. And though these guys don't strike me as sounding very German, they sound definitely like a product of the era, which is cool. And I like it. I think it's good. If I find it, I'll buy it. And I'm a little more curious now to check out the follow-up. I know it's a different singer, and it'd be interesting to hear where they went with it. But yeah, good stuff. It was a good pick, Jim. Awesome as always. Can't go wrong with thrash. It's a thrash metal summer. Go ahead, Jurgen.
I've got one little fun thing. Like you mentioned, on their second album, Rising from the Sea, they had a different singer. And they came back with that album, Fire and Damnation, in 2012. And they re-recorded the song Fallen Saint, which already had Mem von Stein on vocals, but they re-recorded it with their second singer. And they re-recorded I Dare You, which is a song off of Rising from the Sea, but with Mem von Stein on vocals. So they switched vocalists.
That's kind of a fun thing to do.
That is cool. Yeah.
It's cool they brought them back. There was no animosity, so they had both singers, that's cool.
That is cool, yeah.
Do you have all their other stuff too, Jurgen? Is it all good or so-so?
It's all good, but the first two have a cult status, at least here in Germany. Their newer stuff is a little bit more polished. On the second comeback album, the album after the comeback album, they even had a cover of Grip Incorporated's What Is the Fast song, Hostage to Heaven. So it goes a little bit more into the modern stuff. Still the old school riffing, but very, very cleaned up and modern production.
Cool. Well, that's it then. TJ, you know what? We talked last week about having the viewers, the people in the chat pick our next one, but me and Kellen had it all worked out. He explained to me how it was going to go, how it went last time, and I'm like, yeah, I got it, no problem. Well, I forgot, so we're going to put that off till next week when he's here and he can explain it to everybody. So TJ,
I'm down with that. Doing that, that's fine.
We'll talk about it later. I don't want to put it out there and people do it.
That's fine.
We'll just do it next week. We'll announce a viewer's choice contest type of thing. So we'll do that. But in the meantime, it's TJ's turn to pick, and I'm scared.
Well, I've been debating, like, again, saxophone, no saxophone. Then I decided Johnny Touch is always at the ready. But then, I don't know if anybody's ready to go through that again. And then I remembered that Jim and I have been one of the folks in the chat had mentioned that Jim and I were waging a war. We're battling it out. The War of the Ages for the thrash bands from the 80s. This has been, and we Marty and I had mentioned it, and I know you had said something, and we talked about it tonight even a little bit. And so I'm going to put aside all these other very interesting bands, very wonderful bands that I enjoy.
Where TJ finds himself getting in touch with his feelings, which nobody wants.
So it's this, if it doesn't make you suffer, it's not metal. But anyway, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to do this. Let's
will you be able to come back next Wednesday?
Yeah. if you want me to.
Sure. Yeah. We'll bring you on next Wednesday.
I'm sitting here and we're talking about it, and I know it's going to be something of a gush fest over this, but I don't care. Yeah. Which debut will he pick? It's not a debut. I didn't go that far, but yeah. And I'm also going to say that The battle ends at this, Jim. we're gonna call an armistice, bro.
hey, man. I'm just gonna say you win.
No,
you win for that pick, bud.
After this, I promise.
That's of the first three. That's not my favorite.
I know.
That's because you're wrong.
No, after this, I promise I will pick absolutely bizarre, melancholy shit that will put everybody in a bad mood from now on. That's more modern.
Everybody get ready for Angus Mix 6. I'm coming with it.
I think I'll be shingling a roof that week too. Right, Jim?
You bastard. That is hilarious.
All right, everybody. Y'all rule. Jurgen, thank you for joining us. He'll be everybody. Jurgen's coming back next Wednesday. Show notes. Dennis from Analog Archives will be joining us for the first time. It'll be good to. He typically works Friday, so we haven't been able to work it out, but he's got a spot. We're going to be talking about favorite EPs because it could have been a deeper topic, but we're busy and it takes a while to do homework. So this will be an easy topic for us all. So Dennis from Analog Archives, check out Jurgen 6 Beers 9 Wives. Check out Eihwaz Recordings. Check out The Glorious Dead. Links to everything is in the description. Oh, and check out Killing for Company. His link's in the description too. Kellen will be back next week. He thought he was getting away from the thrash attack this week.
All I know is I hope that next week, I hope that Kellen, if you're watching, bro, bring the gun show. Bring it, because that's what, I watched that review you did, and I was riveted to that. I couldn't pull my eyes away from
Sun's
from
out, guns
show,
out.
so.
All right, everybody. Cheers. Thanks for watching, and thanks for all you guys for always doing this. It's so much fun. Cheers. Everybody have a great week. We'll see ya. Bye.
Right.
Jurgen, don't hang up.